There is a figure that crosses cultures, centuries, and symbolism, a being that inhabits the border between what is known and what does not yet have a name. In Eastern tradition, the fox is that being. Not an ordinary animal, but a creature that learned to exist on both sides at once. In Chinese and Japanese folklore, she accumulates wisdom over time, crossing the veil between the visible and the invisible. She is ancient, and antiquity, for those who know how to read it, is synonymous with depth. Today she has a cracked flask in her hands, and she is not trying to hide the cracks. She is filling each one of them with gold. In Japan, there is an art called kintsugi, the practice of repairing broken ceramics with lacquer mixed with gold or silver. The philosophy behind it is simple and radical at the same time. The breaking is part of the object's history. Hiding it would be a lie. Integrating it with gold is a way of honoring what was and what survived. The repaired object does not go back to what it was. It becomes something that could only exist after having broken. Today, the question we brought is this: what if healing worked the same way? Not erasing what happened, but integrating with care and with time what broke. And what that feeling almost always brings with it is a question that seems reasonable but carries a trap inside it. When am I finally going to be healed? There is an idea about healing that most of us absorbed without realizing it. The idea that healing means reaching a point where the thing no longer hurts, where you think about it and feel nothing, where the past finally stays in the past once and for all, quiet, settled, without the power to move you, as if healing were the same as the absence of the wound. And that idea, as understandable as it is, creates a silent problem, because it turns healing into a destination, a place of arrival with fixed coordinates. And as long as you haven't gotten there, as long as it still hurts, as long as it still shows up, as long as it still moves you, you read yourself as incomplete, as someone who hasn't finished the process yet, who is still behind where they should be. The psychologist Carl Jung spent decades observing what happens when people try to heal by erasing, suppressing, ignoring, burying what hurts beneath layers of busyness or forced optimism. And what he saw repeatedly was that what is not integrated does not disappear, keeps operating underneath. Jung was not saying that pain needs to last forever. He was saying that it needs to be met directly with honesty before it can transform into something else. In Buddhism, there is a teaching about what they call dukkha, which translates poorly as suffering, but means something closer to dissatisfaction, friction, the resistance we feel when life does not match what we expected. And what Buddhism observed is that this friction does not increase because of the pain itself. It increases through resistance to the pain, through the refusal to let it be what it is, for as long as it needs to be. It is not the wound that hurts most. It is the struggle against the wound. And when Jung and Buddhism meet at this point, when depth psychology and contemplative philosophy point in the same direction, something begins to shift in the way we understand what it means to be healing. What if the question was wrong from the very beginning? Not your pain, that is real. Not your desire to stop suffering, that is completely legitimate. But the question, when am I finally going to be healed, assumes that there is a finish line. A fixed future moment when the process ends and you can finally stop working on it. And perhaps that line does not exist. Perhaps healing is not a destination. Perhaps it is a direction. And there is an enormous difference between those two things, because a direction does not need a point of arrival to be real. You can be moving toward healing on a day when you are still crying. On a day when the song played and everything came back. On a day when you woke up heavy and still chose, in some small and nearly invisible moment, to do something gentle for yourself. That is healing, not the absence of pain, the choice to keep going even with it. And then the question changes shape entirely. It is no longer, when am I going to be healed? It becomes, what do I choose to do today, on this specific day, with everything I am carrying, that points in the direction of who I want to become? That question does not have a grand answer. Sometimes the answer is drinking water, sleeping at a decent hour, calling someone, not calling someone, leaving the house, staying home, things so small they seem insufficient. But it is exactly those small choices made day after day that form the direction. Healing is not a return to what existed before the breaking. It is the creation of something that can only exist after it. There is a difference between what is in our control and what is not. What happened is not in your control. It is done. It is unchangeable. But your relationship with what happened, how you carry it, what you do with it, who you choose to be in the face of it, that is still in your hands. Not as denial, as responsibility. The word responsibility here is not a burden. It is power. The poet and activist Maya Angelou, who lived through things few people could carry, once said that you cannot control what happens to you, but you can control what you do with what happens, and that it is precisely there, in that space between what was and what you do now, that your life truly takes place. It is not a belief you adopt in a moment of clarity and maintain forever. It is something you perceive and choose again, tomorrow, and the day after tomorrow. Kintsugi does not repair the flask in an afternoon. Each crack needs time, needs specific attention, needs the resin to settle before the next layer is applied. It is a process that cannot be rushed without the result breaking again. And perhaps that is exactly what healing asks for. Not speed, not arrival, presence, continuity, the renewed choice every day to keep applying gold to the cracks, even on the days when your hand trembles. Today may have been a difficult day, or an ordinary day that suddenly became heavy without warning, or a day when you woke up fine and ended up exhausted, without quite understanding what happened in between. And even so, you are here. That is not a small thing. It is, in fact, the whole thing. Healing is not going to appear in a moment when everything seems to make sense all at once. It is going to appear on an ordinary morning when you notice with a quiet surprise that you are carrying what you carry in a way that feels slightly different from how you carried it before. Not without weight, but looking at that weight differently, as if what you carry now sits a little lighter than it did. That is the gold in the cracks, not the absence of them. The question that remains for the easy days and especially for the difficult ones is this: what is the smallest choice you can make today? The simplest, the most honest, that points in the direction of who you are trying to become. If something here is still moving inside you, perhaps it is worth continuing to walk this path. And if you would like, write in the comments how this video left you feeling. It doesn't need to be long or elaborate. Can be a sentence, can be a single word. Sometimes naming what you are feeling is already a way of applying gold to a crack. I am certain that what you write will reach someone who is exactly where you have already been, or where you still are right now. Healing rarely happens alone. The flask does not need to be whole to be valuable. It just needs to keep being cared for.